All right, session recap for Wednesday, May 8th, starting off with ES here. So yesterday we did identify that bit of exhaustion based on that daily time frame candle. You can see a little bit of the wick overhead there. Tight range day yesterday, not even showing I believe it was less than about 30% of a normal ATR move. Yeah, about 30% of normal one ATR move. Current ATR on ES 64 points. So tighter range day, lower volume, bit of exhaustion there, right at the year-to-date volume point of control, and following a pretty explosive rally, pretty explosive 3-day rally. We're talking about, including yesterday's high, about 200 points off of those May 1st lows. So pretty explosive move. As always, anytime you have that big volatility expansion type of move, what comes next, right? You get that compression like we've talked about so many times. So you start to see a bit of that compression yesterday and bleeding into today as well. Although today we did have some pretty good setups to work with. So we're looking at a gap lower this morning. One of the things I had mentioned in yesterday's session recap was, would not be unlikely to see some selling down through yesterday's low, just considering the shape of that daily bar, right? A little bit of a breather, start to see some selling. The question then becomes, if price is trading below the prior day low, the question then becomes, where are buyers going to step in? And one thing I'm always considering is when you see a pretty explosive move like this, it's going to leave a lot of people without a position. Right, a lot of people who may be bullish and they may not yet have their position. So you have an explosive rally, and the thought process of many market participants at this time is, I'm going to wait for some type of pullback to get involved. So for us as active traders, then we're looking to assess where that may be. Now, most likely it's going to be at some downside level of interest. The question is, how deep is the pullback going to be? Right, if we even take some type of fib on here, let me reformat this. There we go. We can see that price did not even pull back into that first shallow fib, right? So buyers still, and this is an important clue because it tells us that buyers are still pretty aggressively looking for a position within this move, and that we may even see potentially higher prices. Right. So remember the prevailing structure, especially on a session like this. A session like this becomes challenging because you do have a bit of conflicting information. We have the breakout here, which is obviously a very bullish development, but now we're starting to see some exhaustion. Right. So we know that the main structure is bullish, but kind of fighting this daily bar. And that's where it can get a little bit tricky. So what we want to do is just, at least the way I approach it, is stay patient. Really, this is not a session personally where I'm going to be looking to trade the open or be super aggressive in those early minutes. I just want to see how the structure kind of builds out in that first 15, 30 minutes, right? And what we can see pretty much into the open following this puke essentially through the prior day lows, you start to see some buyers step in. Now, for a candle like this to ignite, you need to move through that candle's high, and that's pretty much what we see right off of the open, right? So that level, that downside 51.95, holds as support with a pretty strong 30-minute structure right through there, and you get a test of the most recent lower high, essentially, for this kind of mini structure. Right. And so for tomorrow, what I really want to see is if today's buyers are going to continue to show up and pay higher prices up through today's high. So today's high, let's take a look at exactly where that is. Here's a regular trading hours chart. So 52.17 will be that main watch for tomorrow's session. Like to see if this buying activity does continue into tomorrow, and if price can't sustain above today's high. Most likely you'll see that test of Tuesday's high, potentially even that 52.30 upside level of interest. So to keep it super simple for tomorrow, just be looking at the reaction versus today's high. And we'll be keeping a very similar type of approach in NQ. The structure continues to be quite similar to what we see in ES from a structural perspective. I do think NQ has been trading a bit cleaner as of late as far as the actual technical setups that we see in the intraday action, but from a structural perspective, meaning just looking at the higher time frame, setup is pretty much exactly the same. You have that low marked down here, another higher low, price breaks that pivot, right? You get the change of character through here, you get the breakout, same type of exhaustion bar, although yesterday's exhaustion bar a bit cleaner as far as the shape of it. And now we have the gap down into 18,100. There's your 30-minute hammer, same type of setup, and now we're trading back up into Tuesday's range. Right, so the argument also could be made that price just settles here within a near-term range, which definitely is not out of the question, again, considering this explosive move. Right, so maybe continued action through this range into Thursday, potentially into Friday. I don't believe we have any major economic data prints this week, so it could just be taking a bit of a breather here before we get another market moving catalyst. But that is going to be the main watch into tomorrow. We just want to see how price is going to be trading versus today's high up here into 18,242. And that's about it. Hope everyone had a good session. If you guys had any questions at all, as always, you can shoot me a DM in the Traders Think Tank. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning for the pre-market prep. Have a good afternoon.